She was pushed away from the table, from the embraces, from even the family photos. No explanation. No one stood by her side. Carole Middleton, the woman once celebrated across the nation at Princess Kate's wedding, now quietly erased from her daughter's life. Every gift she prepared for her grandchildren, every family gathering she longed for, was canceled under the guise of ceremonial reasons. But what lay behind that cold indifference? A new order was being drawn, and at its center stood a woman wearing a crown, Camilla. She didn't just sideline Carole, she obliterated every trace. She believed she could control it all: Kate's image, the rules of protocol, even the memories of a once warm Berkshire family. But one thing Camilla couldn't control was a mother's heart. When the final drop overflowed, Carole didn't speak through tears, but through truth. And in that moment, in the heart of power, Camilla, for the first time in her life, fell silent, breathless. April 2011, London glowed with festive splendor. Golden sunlight spilled across the cobblestone paths to Westminster Abbey, where millions watched the royal wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton. Church bells mingled with the crowd's cheers, painting a modern fairy tale where love transcended boundaries. At the heart of this story stood Carole Middleton, the bride's mother, quiet yet proud. The British press dubbed her Super Granny, a self-made woman who from a modest Berkshire kitchen built party pieces and now watched her daughter enter the royal fold. But beneath the dazzling spotlight, a cold wind whispered, carrying an unseen threat to Carole's place in the royal portrait. During the wedding preparations, Carole poured her heart into every detail. She suggested classic English dishes, fragrant shepherd's pies evoking cozy Berkshire family dinners, delicate white lilies from her garden, a touch of home for the grand event. Yet each idea was dismissed with icy politeness. The response from the organizers was a chilling refrain. Mrs. Camilla Parker Bowles's office has approved an alternative plan. Carole, gracious and generous, swallowed her disappointment. She told herself it was merely palace protocol, a world she'd learned to navigate for her daughter's sake. But deep within, a quiet unease took root. Her voice, once Kate's guiding light, was being silenced. After the wedding, the cracks grew stark. Carole found herself excluded from post-ceremony gatherings, moments she'd imagined sharing with her family, hugging her grandchildren and laughing with her son-in-law. Invitations that once arrived at her warm Berkshire home ceased. In their place came bewildering silences and whispers from palace staff, hinting at a new directive: narrow the circle, prioritize aristocratic tradition, and eliminate outsider elements. Carole, with her sensitive heart, felt the widening distance, but chose silence, hoping time would mend the rift. By 2015, the insults turned blatant. For Princess Charlotte's christening, Carole spent weeks planning a modest family gathering at Sandringham's church grounds. It wasn't lavish, just homemade biscuits, family stories, and her grandchildren's laughter, a chance to affirm her role as their grandmother. She pictured herself holding Charlotte, sharing tales of Kate's childhood. But days before a curt message arrived, the event was canceled due to sudden schedule changes. No explanation, no apology. Through trusted confidants, Carole learned the truth. The decision came from the master of ceremonies, a loyal ally of Camilla, acting on her direct orders. In the dim glow of a desk lamp in her quiet Berkshire room, Carole sat alone, her hand clutching a pen, her heart heavy. That night, her words poured onto paper, raw and unfiltered. They praised me for staying silent, for not reacting when I'm excluded from family gatherings or Kate's events. But silence means accepting that I'm sidelined from my daughter's and grandchildren's lives. I'm Kate's mother, George, and Charlotte's grandmother, yet every rejection makes me feel like I don't belong in this family. They canceled my gathering for Charlotte, stopped inviting me to meaningful moments. My love for my daughter, my grandchildren, seems unwelcome now. It breaks my heart. What Carole didn't know was that Camilla, with the cunning of a survivor who'd fought to secure her royal place, had quietly built a sophisticated power network. In Buckingham Palace's shadowy chambers, where light never reached, Camilla formed the Consort Strategy Group, CSG, a secret advisory team disguised as a tool for stabilizing ceremonial order. But behind its polished facade, the CSG had a darker mission: to protect a pure, royal image untainted by those Camilla deemed unworthy of the crown. Camilla's motives stemmed from a deep fear for her own position. Once vilified by the public as she entered the royal fold, she knew her acceptance hinged on upholding a flawless, aristocratic image. The Middletons, with their entrepreneurial roots and rags to riches story, posed a threat in her eyes. Their closeness to Kate and William, coupled with the public's adoration of Carole's super granny, risked overshadowing Camilla's influence and weakening the traditional nobility she sought to preserve. To Camilla, the Middletons weren't just a family. They were a symbol of a modern shift she feared could destabilize the monarchy's foundation. Internal CSG documents locked in palace safes labeled this mission safeguarding the crown's legacy. In truth, it was a ruthless plan to isolate the Middletons, especially Carole, whom Camilla saw as the primary threat to her desired order. In clandestine meetings, the CSG outlined a meticulous strategy: gradually erase the Middletons' presence from royal events, control Kate's image to portray her as a duchess detached from her mother, and replace Carole's influence with Camilla's loyal advisors. The ultimate goal was to reduce the Middletons to shadows, nameless, traceless, in the royal narrative, ensuring the monarchy's legacy aligned with Camilla's vision. By 2016, Camilla's power as the future queen consort was unshakable. She wasn't just a background figure, but the architect of a restructured royal media machine. In her vision, Kate Middleton was molded into perfection, an elegant, devoted duchess, radiating timeless grace as a future queen. The press hailed Kate as a symbol of charm and duty, but behind the radiant portrait was a steep cost. Every step, word, and glance of Kate's was orchestrated to fit Camilla's ambition, a pure royal brand free of the Middletons' middle-class roots. Carole, with a mother's keen intuition, began noticing troubling patterns. Kate's public events, from hospital ribbon cuttings to international charity galas, seemed deliberately scheduled to clash with significant Middleton family moments. Her father Michael's birthday, her grandmother's memorial occasions, once filled with tea and shared stories, were replaced by lavish scenes where Kate appeared alongside core royals. Carole couldn't ignore the suspicious timing. Whenever she hoped to see her daughter, an invisible barrier arose, as if someone was intentionally building a wall between them. The interference didn't stop at schedules. Family photos, once cherished in palace bulletins, were now controlled with surgical precision. Images of William, Kate, and the Middletons together, simple moments like George's birthday parties or Berkshire strolls, vanished from press releases. In their place were carefully staged scenes: Kate beside Camilla at a charity event or holding a duke's hand at a royal dinner. Each chosen image sent a clear message: Kate belonged to the crown's world, not the warm Berkshire home. In 2017, a new wound cut deep. Out of love for her grandchildren, Carole proposed an Australian nanny, a dedicated woman with a warm smile and storytelling skills that captivated children. Carole believed she'd bring comfort to Prince George and Princess Charlotte during their parents' busy days. The proposal was initially approved, and Carole felt a flicker of relief, believing she'd contributed to her grandchildren's lives. But weeks later, the nanny was abruptly replaced after a private discussion between Camilla and palace security. Her replacement was a stern British nanny tied to Camilla's inner circle. When Carole inquired, she received a vague response: "This decision better serves the royal interest." Her influence, even in the smallest details of her grandchildren's lives, was being erased. Carole's journal, penned on a November evening in 2019, laid bare her silent agony. "I asked to visit Kate, only to be told to wait because she was unwell and needed rest. 3 days later, I saw her on the news, radiant at a children's hospital, cutting a ribbon with a perfect smile. No explanation. I wonder, when did I become a stranger in my daughter's life?" Meanwhile, Camilla's CSG operated with terrifying efficiency, like a machine programmed to shape the monarchy to her will. A new internal policy banned intimate, non-ceremonial images, especially those featuring the Middletons, who carried the warmth of middle-class life from Buckingham. To enforce this, a covert unit, the Royal Image Control Division, was formed. Their task was to monitor every frame, article, and public moment of Kate's, ensuring she appeared as a regal icon, wholly detached from her family's humble past, the cozy dinners, the garden, and the simple love Carole brought to her daughter and grandchildren. Every smile, wave, and photo of Kate was scrubbed of Carole's presence. Behind Buckingham's closed doors, the CSG met weekly, crafting detailed plans for the future royal image, a world where the Middletons were erased, where Kate was known only as a Duchess of the Crown, untethered from her middle-class roots. Camilla's message was unmistakable: Bucklebury's family values had no place in Buckingham's cold grandeur. Carole Middleton was no stranger to resilience. From a humble idea at her Bucklebury kitchen table, she built party pieces into a thriving business, overcoming countless challenges with sharp intellect and unwavering resolve. But by 2022, after years of silently enduring her family's exclusion from Kate's and her grandchildren's lives, Carole's patience had worn thin. The rejections from Charlotte's 2015 christening to the 2017 nanny replacement weren't just personal slights. They signaled a larger conspiracy. No longer the compliant mother on the sidelines, Carole became a quiet warrior, ready to confront the palace's power machine to protect her family. She didn't choose public outbursts knowing emotions couldn't defeat strategy. Instead, she fought smartly, discreetly, leveraging her years running party pieces. In early 2022, Carole took action, reconnecting with her old network party pieces partners, seasoned PR advisors who admired her sincerity, and journalists who'd stayed in touch since Kate's 2011 wedding. With the finesse of a strategist, she assembled a covert team tasked with investigating the CSG, the group behind the Middletons' systematic isolation. Every call, meeting, and piece of information was handled with utmost care, like a Go player, placing stones toward a final goal, exposing the truth. Her efforts bore fruit by late 2023. One late evening in her modest Berkshire study, the desk lamp's glow illuminated Carole's pensive face. A trusted courier, a former party pieces partner, handed her an unmarked envelope. Inside was a bombshell, a trail of financial transactions from the Royal Children's Fund, meant to support youth charities diverting millions to a Swiss PR firm. What chilled Carole was the firm's address matching a luxury Swiss resort Camilla visited in 2018. The dry numbers told a grim story. Royal funds meant for children were bolstering Camilla's and the CSG's power. Suspicions deepened when another source emerged. Emma, a young palace media staffer frustrated by the CSG's iron grip, secretly sent Carole a recording from a closed-door meeting. In her darkened room as Carole pressed play, Camilla's icy voice cut through like a blade. "We cannot allow a Berkshire girl who finished university and sells balloons to shape the British throne's image." The words weren't just a personal insult, but proof of a deliberate campaign to erase the Middletons' influence. Carole's hands clenched, pain and fury rising. But she suppressed her emotions, knowing this was just one piece. To challenge Camilla, she needed an airtight dossier, an unassailable weapon. Over the next 2 years, from 2023 to early 2025, Carole worked relentlessly like a seasoned investigator. She collaborated with a financial expert to analyze transactions, hired a private investigator to trace the Swiss PR firm, and built an insider network including palace staff who'd witnessed the CSG's control. By February 2025, she was ready. In a sleek black leather briefcase, Carole compiled 3 years of financial reports, shady transactions with Crown Messaging Lendhanad, a paper-only entity with no real office, and 3 CSG meeting recordings, each exposing Camilla's disdain for the Middletons. The most damning was a draft post-Elizabeth II image strategy, coldly outlining plans to erase the Middletons from royal narratives, making Kate a standalone icon, unlinked to Bucklebury, serving Camilla's purely regal vision. The fateful day arrived February 15, 2025. Carole requested an unannounced audience at Buckingham Palace. As she entered the Grand Hall, black briefcase in hand, the air seemed to freeze. Palace staff, flustered, whispered about the Berkshire mother's sudden arrival. They hurriedly ushered her to a receiving room where Camilla waited. Camilla's face was a mask of calm, but her sharp eyes betrayed wariness. Carole stood tall, her gaze burning like steel. Without hesitation, she placed the briefcase on the polished ebony table, her voice steady yet commanding. "You've deliberately pushed me out of Kate's and my grandchildren's lives. I'm here to end that." Camilla, with the arrogance of one accustomed to power, replied bluntly, "I did it to protect the monarchy. Your family, with its mundane business past, doesn't belong in this world." Carole didn't flinch, her voice low, but razor sharp. "The monarchy cannot survive if you trample those who love it." The room fell silent, save for the clocks ticking like a tense heartbeat. Camilla, struggling to maintain composure, couldn't hide her trembling hands as she opened the briefcase. The documents, shady financial reports, 3 recordings of her scorning the Middletons, and the post-Elizabeth II strategy struck like hammer blows to her confidence. Reading the note, "The Middleton family must not weaken the aristocratic image," and hearing her own voice in the recordings, Camilla felt her blood run cold. Her once confident words now turned against her, slicing into her pride. Her lips tightened, a sharp breath escaped, and her eyes flickered with panic as she grasped the scale of her misstep. Camilla searched for a rebuttal, but Carole's unrelenting gaze silenced her. For the first time in years, she felt her power waver. The documents weren't just evidence. They were a warning. If leaked, her reputation, already scarred by past public scorn, would collapse. Worse, if King Charles learned of this, the trust she'd built over decades could vanish. As Carole left her steps firm, the air felt heavy with an impending storm. Camilla sat motionless, clutching a paper, her eyes lost as if watching her power crumble piece by piece. In the 10 days that followed, Camilla withdrew from all public events, shocking the public and press. Buckingham Palace, under pressure from her advisors, canceled 3 major engagements: a Nordic ambassador reception, an international charity gala, and a Scotland visit, citing scheduling conflicts. But whispers in palace corridors revealed the truth: Camilla couldn't face the world with her mind in turmoil. She secluded herself in her Clarence House quarters, poring over the documents, desperate to counter or mitigate the damage. Each recording number and line was undeniable proof of her manipulative ambition. Her greatest fear wasn't just media exposure, but a summons from King Charles. An insider revealed that Charles, though silent, publicly ordered advisors to assess the impact of recent decisions on the royal image, a clear sign Camilla was losing his support. Inside the palace, the mood was icy. Staff, once cowed by Camilla's sharp directives, now avoided her name. Former CSG allies, from media advisors to the master of ceremonies, distanced themselves, fearing fallout if the truth surfaced. Buckingham's opulent halls, with their ancient paintings and red carpets, felt more stifling than ever. Carole Middleton, with her black briefcase and steadfast heart, had shaken a power structure Camilla once believed invincible. In that tense silence, the monarchy held its breath, awaiting a new chapter. Kate Middleton had always bridged 2 worlds: her simple Bucklebury childhood, filled with family laughter in a garden, and her royal destiny, where every move was scrutinized under media glare and palace protocol. For years, she navigated the palace's complex maze with grace and loyalty, believing her devotion would protect those she loved. But in spring 2025, after Carole's historic February confrontation with Camilla, a long-hidden secret surfaced, shattering Kate's trust. Carole's black briefcase wasn't just a strike against Camilla. It was a wake-up call, forcing Kate to face a wrenching choice: uphold the monarchy's perfect facade or defend the mother who'd sacrificed everything for her. It began in early March 2025, weeks after Carole's palace showdown. Kate, though absent from the meeting, sensed a shift. Palace staff grew guarded, conversations halted abruptly, and Camilla's sudden withdrawal from public events was unprecedented. A gnawing unease stirred in Kate. She suspected her reserved mother had done something to rattle the palace. The truth arrived via an anonymous letter left on her Kensington Palace desk. The sender was Sarah, a young media staffer close to Kate, working under the CSG's tight control. Moved by Carole's courage and fed up with Camilla's oppressive directives, Sarah risked everything, copying an internal CSG document and sending it to Kate, hoping the Duchess would grasp the conspiracy against her family. Titled Image Strategy Transition, Post-Elizabeth Phase. The file was sent via an encrypted palace app late on March 5, 2025. When Kate opened it, her heart froze. The document exposed the CSG's cruel aim to phase out the Middletons from royal ceremonies and imagery, crafting Kate into a pure duchess severed from her Bucklebury roots. Each line cut deep, revealing how Camilla and her advisors controlled Kate's schedule, erased Middleton family images from the press, and replaced Carole's influence with Camilla's allies. One note chilled Kate. The Middleton family, with its commercial background, must not undermine the dynasty's aristocratic image. Kate realized the coincidences: her mother's exclusions, the 2017 nanny swap, the missing family photos, were part of a calculated plan. That night, in her private Kensington Palace room, the desk lamp cast shadows across Kate's face. She saw her mother's solitary fight against a formidable system. Kate could no longer stay silent. With trembling hands, she sent Carole an encrypted message, attaching a brief note: "Mom, I know the truth. I won't let them hurt our family anymore." That message marked Kate's turning point, the moment she crossed a line, challenging the system she'd once served unquestioningly. Buckingham Palace, with its ancient stone walls and lavish corridors, had long symbolized permanence. But by summer 2025, it resembled a house of cards trembling under the weight of the truth Carole Middleton brought in her black briefcase. Her documents, recordings, and unrelenting courage shook the foundations of a system built on protocol and power. By early summer, subtle but profound changes emerged like dawn, breaking after a long storm. The monarchy, however, slowly was adapting to a new era, one where authenticity began to triumph over artifice. The first sign was a historic gesture. Kate Middleton's office, once tucked in a modest Kensington Palace corner, was relocated to a prestigious Buckingham corridor directly opposite King Charles's study. No duchess had ever been positioned so close to power's heart. Staff whispered, their eyes mixing curiosity and awe. This wasn't just a logistical shift, but a silent declaration. Kate was no mere duchess, but a pivotal figure with a growing voice. Rumors swirled that Charles discreetly recognized the need to restore balance, a balance that couldn't ignore the Middletons' value. Meanwhile, Camilla, once an unchallenged queen behind the scenes, felt her influence wane. On a June morning, an internal memo stunned senior advisors. Camilla was removed from the Media Review Board for Q2 2025. No public explanation was given, but her absence from key meetings was a crushing blow. Those who once cowered under her piercing gaze now averted their eyes, sensing the winds of power had shifted. In palace corridors, tension hung heavy, with conversations cut short and furtive glances exchanged. Camilla, though maintaining her proud facade, couldn't hide her growing unease. A confidential report to Charles's closest advisors clarified the shift. Written in careful diplomatic language, it called for reassessing the influence of non-bloodline individuals serving as de facto advisors to the heir. Though unnamed, its target was clear: Camilla and her CSG. Within weeks, the CSG, once a covert powerhouse controlling royal imagery, was disbanded. Its files detailing plans to isolate the Middletons were sealed and archived as if the palace sought to erase a dark chapter. The Royal Image Control Division, tasked with erasing Carole's presence, quietly dissolved. Its staff were reassigned, some leaving silently, carrying secrets they dared not share. But the defining moment, the true rebalancing of order, came in July 2025. Kate, now radiating newfound confidence, made her boldest move. At the launch of a children's book, she championed a project to inspire young readers. She appeared with her mother, Carole, and her children, Prince George and Princess Charlotte. The event unfolded in a cozy London library with wooden shelves and soft light streaming through large windows. No scripts, no rigid protocol, no Camilla or her old power circle. It was a pure moment, placing family love above all. Photographers, invited with a promise of something different, captured images that stopped the world. Carole, beaming with love, sat between George and Charlotte, reading aloud with the warm voice she'd used for Kate's bedtime stories. George, usually reserved, giggled as his grandmother mimicked a storybook rabbit. Charlotte, her blonde hair gleaming, nestled into Carole's side, listening intently. Nearby, Kate stood quietly, her eyes shining with pride and a hint of tears. Her simple green dress, the hue of Berkshire fields, subtly honored her roots. The palace media team, now free from old constraints, released the photos unfiltered. No invisible hands cropped images, no secret orders erased Carole's presence. The raw, warm images spread like wildfire online. Within hours, the photo of Carole reading to her grandchildren with Kate by her side became the most shared royal image of the month. Social media erupted with praise. "This is the royalty we need, real, relatable, loving one," user wrote. Another tweeted, "Carole Middleton doesn't need a crown to shine. She's this family's heart." The press, long bound by palace-controlled narratives, broke free. Headlines across the Times, The Guardian and beyond carried a new tone. Some weren't born royal, but they're why it endures. A Telegraph op-ed declared, "In a world obsessed with image and power, Carole Middleton reminds us that family, not crowns, is the bedrock of endurance." These words weren't just praise, they affirmed Carole's fight had reshaped public views of the monarchy. Inside the palace, the mood remained heavy. Camilla, though attending minor events, lacked her former haughty confidence. Insiders noted her growing silence, her eyes often distant when unobserved. Some speculated Charles had summoned her to discuss her future role, though none confirmed. Her absence from key palace decisions was telling. Camilla's era of manipulation and control was over. Carole Middleton, the Berkshire woman, never sought the spotlight. She didn't dream of power or public acclaim. For her, it was always about family, The noisy Berkshire dinners, her grandchildren's hugs, Kate's smile. Her battle wasn't for dominance, but for presence to be seen remembered, in part of the story she helped create. By facing Camilla, Carole exposed the fragility of a system valuing image over truth, one willing to sacrifice kinship for a glossy facade.